In 10 and 9 games, respectively. So,
all right, welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We had to take a technical timeout.
Yeah.
Something happened with the computer. I don't know, Steve. What happened? It froze.
It reset itself.
Reset itself.
Bizarre.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. We thought we were going to be doing a Channel 3 show, and we would be starting the Channel 3 show in 4 seconds. We ended up not doing a Channel 3 show today because the French Open is on. They're getting down to the nitty-gritty at the French Open, and NBC has to carry the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday matches at the French Open. So no WKYC show today. Obviously, that's why we're still streaming. We apologize about the difficulties. Where were we, Mike, when we left? What were we talking about?
Yeah, we're going to pick this up with the Cavs discussion. We are back, and if anyone sent a super chat earlier, it has been erased because it crashed, so we sincerely apologize. We're not going to have a chance to read those. But let's start with the Cavs discussion. As we were talking about earlier, guys, the Cavs have the 20th pick in the NBA draft, which is coming up in less than 3 weeks. And Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com, their Cavaliers beat reporter, reported that they're bringing in players from all different positions, doing their due diligence on guys to possibly draft at number 20. That includes point guards like Isaiah Collier from USC, to wings like Tristan DeSilva from Colorado, all the way up to 7'4" centers like Zach Edey from Purdue. And knowing the glaring need the Cavs have at the wing position, do they have to take a wing at number 20, or can they go best player available? But because of the need at the specific position, and this is without knowing what they'll do with the future of their roster, the core forward, Garland, Evan, Garrett, and Donovan, if those moves happen. Do they have to go with a wing?
Mike, you're talking about the 20th pick in what everybody considers the worst draft maybe ever in the history of the NBA.
I think that's the general consensus.
I mean, what are the odds, whatever position you take, that you're going to get? I mean, listen, anything's possible, but the odds they're going to get a player that's a valuable player at 20 in the worst draft ever seems so slim. I'm not going to say, I got to take a wing player. I mean, how good is that wing player going to be?
Who are? And by the way,
who are the wing players, Mike, that are going to be any good?
I mean, and let's not act like Kobe Altman is been hitting home runs.
Right, exactly. Like you trust him to get it right.
I mean, you drafted Isaac Okoro, and I mean, no disrespect. I mean, if Isaac Okoro was in this year's draft, would he be a number 1 pick?
He probably would be a top 5 pick in this
draft. Probably would.
No, in all honesty, he probably is a top 5 pick in this draft.
That's disrespectful. You said top 5. He should be by far the number 1 player on the board if he was progressing or had that type of game in his
Bull
bag.
asked real quick who could be an impact wing. Obviously, it's a crapshoot. You don't know. But one guy I particularly like, who I do think fits the Cavs, and he's being mocked in the range of the Cavs, anywhere from like 15 to 22, is Tristan DeSilva from Colorado. He's a 6'9" wing who can shoot, who when you watch Colorado play, he's just a connector. He just makes plays. He's not a guy that needs the ball. He's a guy that can facilitate if needed, can defend, can shoot, can rebound.
So he can do all these things. Why is he getting drafted so low?
Because he's 22 years old.
That's the reason?
Yeah. They don't draft older guys, or 21 years old. They don't draft upperclassmen that high, and he is not a young prospect. But I think he actually has a chance to come in and play pretty quickly.
That seems like a stupid reason. He's 21. He's not old.
He's 23, excuse me. He's 23.
Oh.
So he's an older guy, which means you may be getting the final product, essentially, when you draft him. But he's a guy I do think can step in and play. You take the list again, Steve. The other 4 guys on that list, Keyshawn George, Jacoby Walter, Johnny Furphy, and Carlton Carrington, they're all freshmen, by the way. These are one-and-done guys in the college ranks who offer probably more upside but less immediate impact. He's a guy, like I said, DeSilva's a guy I have found myself gravitating towards because I think the Cavs could use a plug-and-place guy in this scenario, especially with the skill set he brings. But I'd be shocked if they don't go wing. I understand that you may go best player available. If someone slips, there's 100 different reasons to draft the best player available, but they have such a hole at wing, and there's not a ton of free agent wings that make sense for this team at the price they could afford. So I really hope they go in the wing direction with this draft pick.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If they're relying on getting the wing they need at the 20th pick in the worst ever NBA draft, that's like hoping that you're going to be rescued on a boat at the middle of the night and all you have is a Bic lighter, and you don't have a flare, or you don't have a radio, or you just like that's a lot to ask.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a lot to ask. You're telling me that there isn't a better available free agent? The list of free agents it's incredible.
Well, they can afford. They have no cap space.
Hey, go over the tax. Done it before. We're talking about winning a championship. And by the way Boston has decimated everybody else they've played in the playoffs.
Talk to him.
Maybe we're not that far off.
Talk to him.
The best, G, real quick, I was going through this the other day, of like the realistic free agent targets, I think that makes sense for the Cavs, at the price, is Nick Batum. That ain't moving the needle for anybody.
No, that's not it either.
No, it's trade that they're going to have to get.
No, you've got to make a trade or you've got to sign a free agent.
I agree with that. Trust me.
Because this is a championship caliber roster. And like I bring up the Dallas-Boston thing because Boston has boat raced everybody they've played in the playoffs. They've lost 2 games in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but they still beat the Cavs in 5.
They did, but Donovan Mitchell wasn't on the floor. Donovan Mitchell wasn't on the floor for the last game. Jared Allen wasn't on the floor.
They didn't have Porzingis.
I know they didn't. You're right. That's very fair.
I just think the Cavs are at best a 5th team in the East, so they can't just stand still.
I don't know that. I don't know that anymore. I don't. I mean, it looks like the East was Boston and then a bunch of teams.
I know. Listen, tell me a New York Knicks squad that come back.
If they had been healthy, that would have been. If the Knicks had been healthy, I think it would have been a better series. With
the
Boston.
Knicks and the way that they play is different. Like they play hard. Like they play like defense. They got guards that beat you up. They beat you up. They got Jalen Brunson. They still got Julius Randle, who's a second All-NBA team type caliber player.
And Giannis and Embiid were both hurt this year.
That's
so,
true.
That's
true. There were a lot of pieces. The runway for the Celtics to win another championship was huge.
Crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Halliburton got hurt in the series, too.
That's right. Now, they were without Porzingis until
remember,
until
Dallas wasn't Dallas down 2-0. Dallas was down 2-0 to
Minnesota.
No, that was Denver.
Denver was down 2-0 Minnesota.
Dallas has lost game 1 in their first 2 series, and they beat Minnesota in game 1.
You know what I find? You know what's so crazy is
Kyrie was
boy, they neutralized Kyrie.
Is the way that these picks are devaluing in the NBA. Like the number 20th pick ain't worth nothing. No. Like it ain't. You can't even put that with nothing.
Why is that? I feel, and this is just my opinion, that the college game evolving to what it's become has shredded the importance of the NBA draft, at least when it comes to American players.
See, that has been the case. I'm not sure it's because of that, but now with the new second apron of the luxury tax and draft picks are going to be more important than ever before.
They're going to be more important, but are you going to be able to build through the draft like you once could? I don't think you can.
I mean, it depends on your picks and if you hit. There's good players in every draft. It's just a matter of can you identify them. Like, there's never been a draft, even the worst drafts ever, have guys who've come out of it.
But Kobe Altman, what's his track record of identifying them?
That's a legitimate question, and it's not great.
0. And here's what I don't like. We got to get guys that can play. None of this pass, cut, screen away, and we like because you're tall. Pass, cut, screen away, and we like you because you can pass the ball on the weak side. That ain't gonna win you nothing. When you watching these NBA Finals games, when you got Luka at the top of the screen doing what he doing at the top of the key, these kids that you're drafting, I mean, we taking the Luke Traverses of the world. And
Mike, I like that graphic that you put up there.
The last 20 picks.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, because I don't follow it like you do. There's been hits at 21, 22, 23. Like, can you give us a list of difference makers that have been 20 or later in the NBA draft over the last 5 years?
I mean, if you take that graphic, Steve, Jalen Johnson's a really good player for the Hawks.
He is a good player. I wouldn't put him in a difference maker. I mean,
he was their second or third best player this year.
But again, Mike, we've made the point that I think this graphic is meaningless because how bad this draft is.
See, but actually, can I give you a spin zone on that real quick?
Okay, spin zone it.
And it could be terrible, and we have no idea. But because there's no consensus whatsoever on who the top 20 prospects are, literally, I've talked to 3 different guys across the league, and I'm like, who are your 3 favorite? And I got 9.
Is there consensus at the top of the draft at least?
None.
Not even the top 5?
There's like 2, Alex Sarr, who's a guy who averaged, we talk about Bronny James averaging 4 points. This guy's going to get drafted first overall, probably, Alex Sarr. He averaged 9 points a game in the Australian Basketball League last year.
What's happened?
He's a defensive guy.
What the hell has happened?
But to Bo's point, real quick, then we get back to that.
What the hell's going on?
Because there's no consensus whatsoever, literally no consensus. You could get a guy you think's the 4th best player in the draft at 17 or 18 in this draft on your board. So, like, there's a chance that if you like a guy more than someone else, you could identify someone you think's a top 5 prospect who another team may have as the 32nd prospect. I just got one of my buddies worked out someone, and I can't say the name, but he goes, this dude has enough talent to be a number 1 pick in this draft. And his mentals, he's not a first-round pick. Yeah. So, like, you're going to find a guy, depending on what a team likes and needs, that could go anywhere. So, in most years, 20, you're like, oh, we could probably get someone right out the lottery. In this particular year, you might get a guy you value as a top 5 pick just because the rest of the draft is so bad.
But you gotta also think about it, Mike. You know, there's other teams that are willing to play their younger guys. There's other teams that are willing to say, look, you know, Oklahoma City Thunder, right? They started off with all young guys, right? And by the way, in the draft they took your boy Darius Garland. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was taken after him, way after.
Wow. No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was, wasn't he?
SGA was like 3 years before, bro.
What round did they take him?
SGA was a 2018
sorry.
draft.
I'm confused. That was the Colin Sexton draft. Sorry.
2018?
Colin Sexton
yes,
draft.
I think you're right on that.
Yeah, it was Colin Sexton draft.
Sorry,
yeah,
Colin Sexton draft.
SGA went 3 picks after Colin Sexton.
Yeah.
Wow.
God.
Oh, my God.
Hurt my heart.
But you know what? You can nitpick post, you know, because we have the benefit of the results as we can make these discussions.
Well, we can, but that's his job. His job is to know best.
You're right. It's his job.
That hurt.
But let's face it, a lot of teams also missed.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Michael Jordan famously wasn't the number 1 pick in his draft.
The Suns hired Luka Doncic's national team coach the year they had the number 1 pick and took DeAndre Ayton over Luka Doncic.
Which makes no sense whatsoever. It makes absolutely no sense.
As good as Trae Young is, they took Trae Young ahead of Luka.
Well, no, Luka was picked first, but then they traded him to Dallas that night.
That's still a swap.
It's a terrible trade. Marvin Bagley was the 2nd pick in that draft.
Oh, and he's my God.
He's the worst of all of them. Yeah.
Well, you know, the NBA draft is a weird beast because you can go back to one of the most memorable drafts was the LeBron, Carmelo, Bosh, and they weren't the top 3.
It was, what's his name?
Darko Milicic.
That's right.
Snuck in there for Detroit.
Yeah.
And everybody, when they called his name, everybody was like, what?
Yeah.
Who?
By the way, Mike, I think was it you that said, like, people, when I said people have criticized the Cavs for taking Okoro, that there was no, like, if you look at some of the picks so Okoro went 5. That year between 8 and 12, you had Obi Toppin, Denny Avdija.
Don't know who
whatever you say his name. Devin Vassell and Tyrese Halliburton all went within 7 picks.
I'm not saying it was a good pick.
I mean, what a disaster. How is Kobe Altman still have his job?
I keep saying it.
What is happening here?
I just keep saying it. Like
I don't trust him to get it right.
He just keeps showing up to work, and they're like, okay, cool. Your ID still works. Your scan badge is still working.
Oh, by the way, 21st in that draft, Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, my God.
You also had 30, Desmond Bain, and 28, Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Chalk that up. And, listen, Isaac, I love him to death.
By the way, you know
human.
who the Mr. Irrelevant of that draft was?
Who was it?
Sam
And
Merrill.
Hey, geez, one thing on Okoro, then we'll switch up. My biggest frustration with the Cavs the last 2 or 3 years, and it's Okoro and it's Mobley in particular, we have an idea of what they can do, but they have been pigeonholed into such specific roles. We're really not even sure, and that's on coaching as well. Like,
thank you.
Kobe, for better or worse, in this draft he missed. It wasn't a good pick with Okoro. And Evan Mobley is still TBD. His ceiling is we literally have no idea. He might be this or he might have way more. We just haven't seen enough. Or he hasn't been allowed to do enough. Like, they have to see what they have in these guys. And if that means you lose an extra regular season game or two because you let Isaac Okoro try to initiate offense, right now they're playing with like, swimmies in the pool.
Mike,
like, you got to throw them in
point,
the deep and see if they can swim.
What is enough? At what point is enough? Like,
He's
on the
never
Evan
been-
Mobley argument, I keep hearing this. He's young. It's early. We haven't seen enough of him.
But you saw what he did versus Boston versus what it looked like in the regular season.
I
And it was
did.
two completely different schematic
Listen,
things.
he's
that we're
had
looking
moments where he looks like he will be that unicorn, but he's had way more moments where he looks like he won't.
This is it. It's got to happen this year.
It better
at.
happen.
But that's
this
what I'm
year
saying. Like the kiddie pool,
oh,
letting him have floaties.
he's
like,
too big for the kiddie pool at this
that's
point.
my point. Like this year, and I'm assuming it's this year. It should have been last year. Like it should have happened.
I wanted it to
I am
be-
not
yes,
saying
I
I'm
agree
not
with
giving him
that.
a pass. I'm just saying we can't change the past. We can only look at the future. You have really no idea what Isaac Okoro can do offensively. We have no idea if Evan Mobley's capable of being a focal point of the offense. And you don't
feel
know
like
unless
you-
you let them try.
Mike.
You
You feel
have
like you
to
have-
let them fail.
You feel like you have no idea what Isaac Okoro can do? You think there's more
No,
upside for
no,
him?
I'm just saying that he hasn't been given the chance. Now, I don't think he has more, but maybe he does, and he just hasn't the chance. And if you don't give him the opportunity to at
But
least,
what opportunity? How many shots you want him to get?
I mean, more than just stand in the corner and shoot threes. Like, let's see if he has the ability to initiate offense, or if he's purely
You know,
not.
the-
They have never asked him to do more than just that.
That's
So
why
it's
I
unfair
do
to
think
say, like-
we absolutely had to have a coaching change.
And it was a year too late.
I think it was, and for no other reason. Like, to me, when I look at what Max Strus was year to year,
Completely different last year, this year.
and it was because of how we used him, and that's on the coach. And it can be on the GM because this question had to be asked before you brought Max in. Can he do here what he did there?
If he's playing in position, I think he could.
No, yeah, but see, that's not part of the question. The question is, can Max Strus Cleveland be Max Strus Miami? Because this is a puzzle. All these pieces have to intricately fit together. And the way he was used, he absolutely could not be Max Strus Miami because we didn't use him the way he was used in Miami. Can he be used that way
And
here?
think how silly it was. We talk about not fitting. You trotted out the whole season a 6'1", 6'2" guard, another 6'1", 6'2" guard, and a bench roll guy who is 6'5" at best, guarding 6'9" wings.
that doesn't work.
That's your starting lineup?
Gee, that's why I said they got to draft a wing. That's my point.
And they gave him a bag of money.
Yeah, but if there's nobody any good, Mike, then
Yeah, you got to add a wing. I don't know that you have to draft a wing. You have to add a wing. Clearly.
I like the De Silva kid. I think he could play. I really do.
You think he's a starter
What
in the
about
NBA?
what about? Well, he's just a 7'4". Like, what is
Edie?
Edie going to be in the NBA?
I mean, he was a dominant college dude. He's better than I think he gets credit for because he's annoying and he's just giant and
He
risky
is
and
annoying.
everything
I'll
else.
draft
He
him.
says he can shoot. I have no idea.
I
He says he
draft
can.
him. Listen, I'm not these other 12.
I don't think he'll be there at 20.
I don't either. I think there's a smokescreen.
There's a chance he's a lottery pick. Like there's
Somebody
a
will
legit
take
chance.
him.
Someone's
will
going
want
to
to
take
get
a
taking
chance
these
on him.
other
He's a
guys.
two-time collegiate player of the year.
And the worst draft ever? Why not take him?
Lowest a two-time collegiate player of the year has ever been drafted.
Give me a sec. I'll see if I can find that.
I know that is very specific.
That's a
I asked
tricky
Mike
one.
some of the craziest questions,
Yeah.
and he always comes up with the answer.
I think is Emeka Okafor from UConn a two-time player of the year, and he had no offensive game.
No, I don't think he won it twice. Did he, Mike?
By the way, in the
can only
meantime,
listen
while
one thing
Mike's
at a
looking for
time.
that, I got a bizarre.
The list of guys that have won it twice is going to be very small.
Zero. Almost.
I got a bizarre stat for you that I heard today. I found it bizarre, maybe because I started my career in upstate New York and like Syracuse basketball was so big.
Yeah.
I guess they haven't. I know they haven't been as good lately, but I think of Syracuse basketball traditionally as a powerhouse program, right?
Yeah, now since Boeheim left,
Yeah.
I don't
But
think
how
that-
about this? There's some. I don't even know his name. I can't even think of the name. But there's somebody in the finals, some backup player that is playing in the finals that went to Syracuse. I can't even think of who it is. But he was the first Syracuse player to play in the NBA finals in like 45 years. I would never have guessed that.
Wow.
They had some
Now
teams.
Boeheim played a very specific
Right.
system.
He had a lot of players that were better college players than pro.
And you know what? Hurley might be doing the same thing at UConn.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, by the way, can I get my love for Hurley? Where's the Hurley? Can I get the confetti to come down? I told you that they should be looking at Hurley, and I told you that I love his systems and his sets, and I told you that, listen,
Yeah,
he
but Mike's
looked at
saying
it.
it's a terrible.
I don't think it's going to
thing.
transition to the
I don't think it's
NBA
gonna
at
work.
all.
I love it.
I love it in the college game. I don't think it's going to
But
work.
they're
in
not
the
looking
NBA.
at
I
him.
don't
But the
think so
Cavs
either.
are not looking at him.
But the Cavs should be looking at him. That's my thought process.
I got you.
The Lakers would. I'm sure the Cavs would.
Jay, I got your answer, by the way. The lowest a two-time National Player of the Year has ever been drafted was in 2021. when Luka Garza went 52nd overall.
Wow, I forgot
Garza.
about him.
I forgot about
Yeah,
Garza.
I totally
Yeah, he's
forgot.
now on Minnesota. And there has been a couple more, but the most recent one was Garza. Before that was Jay Williams. Before Jay Williams, you got to go back to Michael Jordan. So it very infrequently happens when
Very
someone goes
because
back-to-back.
typically if they're that good, they're out.
Exactly.
They go.
So-
You remember who got drafted before Michael Jordan?
Yes,
Elijah
it was.
No.
no, it was the guy that broke his leg.
yeah, Sam Bowie.
Sam
Bowie.
Baba Booey.
Oh,
But
a
it was
horrible,
Hakeem
horrible.
Olajuwon was first, and then Sam Bowie was second. Paul,
Yep.
So don't say incorrect.
What's
By,
that?
by the way,
Hakeem was first in that draft.
Oh,
Sam
my
Bowie
bad.
was second.
Yeah,
That's
no,
right.
but-
Sam Bowie was
but
second.
Sam Bowie was nice in college though. Like he was
His
nice.
second pick.
He was
Yes.
nice.
Yes.
All right, guys, we got one last topic, one last read that we got to get to, or else we don't get paid today, and we want to get paid today. So let me get this read, and then we got our last topic of the day. eBay Motors is a sponsor of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Passion, drive, and patience, that's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some big-time wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Guys, we have you three on the panel. Jay, you have a TV background. G, you're the king of the internet. Bull, you come from a radio background. So I'm curious, and I've been saving this topic for you three in particular. How does the coverage of the Browns compare to the coverage of the Cavs and the Guardians in the city, and why do you think it's so different?
You know, it's funny. I just brought this up recently, Mike. I don't know if that's why you brought this up.
I had this actually on my list of topics,
Okay.
and then you brought it up, and then I was saving it to dive into more depth with you guys.
Now, when we're talking in generalities. It's not every specific person in town.
No.
There's a couple of different angles of this. I think by and large, by media and fans in this town, the Browns get a pass for almost everything. The Cavs get almost no pass, and the Guardians get no pass whatsoever.
None.
But the Cavs don't really either, more than the Guardians, but they don't really get anything. The Browns get a pass for everything. The Browns have by far been the worst of the three organizations until recently, and yet they are given way more benefit of the doubt than the other two organizations. It's always been stunning to me. But in the end, that's because by and large, there are many more people passionate about football, and specifically the Browns,
Look
than they
at the
are about
number
the
of
other two
people.
sports.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Look at the number of people
Yeah.
that are assigned the Browns beat.
Yeah.
And you can add the number of people that are assigned to the Cavs and the Guardians beat, double it,
Yeah.
triple it,
Yeah.
and you still won't have
That's
the
right.
number of daily beat reporters that cover the Browns.
In fact, outside of Chris Fedor, I don't even know, can't name another Cavs beat reporter. Is there anybody else?
Not a beat reporter.
Yeah.
Jason's on the beat.
Right, but he's not.
But
But
he's
he
not
does
an
everything.
everyday
He-
travel
no.
with the team beat reporter.
Right, but just specifically beat
No.
reporter.
Chris is the only traveling Cavs beat
Okay.
reporter.
He is.
For the
He
Guardians,
is.
you have Mandy Bell,
There's a
Zach
few for the
Meisel,
Guardians. There's like
Paul
four.
Hoynes.
Yeah.
Is
Does
what's his
the
name?
Beacon Journal have it every day? I think they do.
Chris Ossenheimer, but I don't
Yes.
think he goes on the road though.
I don't know if he does either. I'm not sure. But to your point,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I have two perspectives on this, and you kind of do too. I've lived half of my life here,
Right, sure.
and I've lived half of my life outside of Ohio.
Right.
And so what I learned about the way the media covers the Browns after I moved away is exactly what you just described. Kid gloves with the Browns, and I'm going to explain why I think that's the case. And the other two teams do not get the benefit of the doubt, particularly the Guardians. They're the ones I
Yeah.
can't figure out. They're the ones that have had, obviously the Cavs are the only ones that won a championship. But if we're going to say which team over the last 30 years has had more success, it's easily the Indians.
Right, yeah.
They've lost 2 World Series, both Game 7s, both extra innings. They've made it to the playoffs countless times. They are the most decorated team over the last 30 years,
Yeah.
even though the Cavs have the championship.
Right.
What I can't understand is when the media tends to pay attention to them, it's for negative stuff.
Often, yes.
And a lot of the positive stuff is overlooked. And I don't get it.
Because they hate the owner.
Probably, which I don't think is fair, because even though I don't love the way he operates, you can't argue with the results. He's been relevant. And that's what you want out of your team.
Well,
you want them to be relevant. Now, I want him to spend money, and he's done it on the cheap, but what he's done with what he has spent is nothing short of a miracle. All of that being said, the reason the Browns reporters, in my view, go easy at the Browns is because it's the one thing in town that all sports fans care about. We care about it year round, and it is a click-based society now. We know that. When we put headlines up, Deshaun Watson expected to do something no Browns quarterback has ever done before, people can be like, what the hell's that? They're going to click.
Right.
If I put on there Deshaun Watson to return from shoulder injury in September, nobody gives a shit about that.
Yeah, right.
But if you write it the way I initially put it out there, and so what the media has learned, it's like Pavlov's dogs.
Right.
When the bell sounds, the dog comes to eat. What the reporters of this generation have learned is, if I'm nice to the Browns, people are going to click on my stuff.
That's right. And
if I'm positive, people are going to click.
People will sell their soul for that type of stuff, unfortunately.
But I feel like, so I'll give you the internet perspective. The internet perspective is different. There are people in this town who have made a living killing the Browns. When the Browns aren't relevant and they're 1-15 or 1-16 on the internet, the rants are what get clicks.
Right.
I can rant
what else
hard.
did you see? But I've heard that a lot.
What else do you have?
I've heard that a lot. There's people that are constantly. But the Browns were so bad for so long. How positive could you be?
Right, exactly.
Well, I can understand it.
Yeah.
I think the reason why it gets the magnifying glass is sometimes we forget. Football was started right down the street in Canton. It's the birthplace. It is. The Hall of Fame is there. It's the epicenter. Everybody knows what the state of Ohio is football. So when you got something that big and you have a team in the Cleveland Browns who have the greatest player ever, Jim Brown. They have the greatest coach ever, Paul Brown. They got one of the most storied programs and franchises of all time, right? You're in the hotbed. We just don't see it because we're not good and we haven't traditionally been good. But name me a place anywhere in the world. Bernie Kosar is not in the Hall of Fame, but he get recognized like one.
Yeah, right.
You see what I'm saying? I don't know no other place in the world. Ken O'Brien can't be he's not going up to people in New York getting drinks. Bernie Kosar is a legend. It only happens in this little place.
I think in other markets similar to Cleveland,
not like this.
It would happen, but I don't know.
Not like this.
New York's not a good comparison. It's too big a city.
We have been doing this forever, and guess what? People still come back. It's in their blood. It just is what it is.
It's a long. I mean, this could be a long conversation. I mean, part of the issue is that we are now in sports talk, whether it's on the internet, YouTube, radio.
It all hits the internet. That's the one thing it all has in common.
Yes, and the younger people in the business, by and large, don't know baseball.
No.
We're seeing more and more of that. So when I came up in New York, everybody at the Fan in New York could talk baseball. Because in New York, you have to be able to talk baseball.
By the way, New York baseball is what Cleveland football is.
Right. Now, at any moment on any day when I was in New York, I could talk Mets, Yankees, Jets, Giants. Those four teams I could talk about any time.
Yeah.
Anytime. It didn't matter. And then the Knicks after that.
But you could talk college basketball too.
Not really.
I mean, college basketball was huge in the Northeast.
Well, when I was a kid, but not when I was on the Fan right before coming here, we didn't talk. I mean, we talked college basketball a little, but not that much.
New York's a baseball town.
But you had to know baseball to work in New York. You don't have to know baseball to work here.
No.
And so we have a lot of members of the media that know nothing about baseball. And then they jump in, which is fine. And, listen, the one thing I'll say is, and I appreciate this, there's two types of when it comes to covering baseball. There's a lot of people in this town that don't know baseball. But in that group, there's two camps. There's people like Tyvus, for example. He's not a big baseball guy, but he tries.
Sure.
Right? He watches the games, he's into it, and he's making an effort. But that's in the minority. A lot of the people in this town that don't know baseball as well, they don't care.
Yeah.
They're not even trying.
And what's interesting to me is that the market has tolerated it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, those people would have been run out. Where if you go into New York and you try talking baseball, you'll be exposed in one day if you don't know it, and then you're gone.
Now, the thing you can get away with in New York that I learned that you can't get away with here as much, believe it or not, is in New York, you don't have to know anything outside of New York because
that's true.
You could talk national stuff in like big football games, maybe with football a little bit. You don't have to know teams in other markets.
Although the baseball guys in New York can go deep on the Dodgers, the Giants. I mean, when you listen to Russo talk baseball, and I don't know where you are. I've never talked to you about Chris Russo. Yeah. He's one of my favorite baseball voices ever.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he's become, like a lot of the older guys, very curmudgeonly in his old age.
He is a curmudgeon now.
But he knows every team in baseball, and he knows them inside and out. But the problem with guys like him sometimes is he knows the other teams better from like 10, 20 years ago. That he's not in the minutia of the rosters on the other teams now.
He is, but not like he used to be.
Not like he used to be.
Yeah, he still goes on MLB and talks. He can get deep into it, but not like once upon a... And you talk when you bring up the history of the game, when he wrote his book, he came on Cold Pizza to talk about it, and he goes, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Cleveland." He goes, "All right, tell me the best players ever played in Cleveland." And I rattled off 20 of them. He's like, "All right, you're a baseball fan."
Yeah, right. Like, he knows it inside.
The history.
He could tell you a story about any baseball team from the 50s, the 40s, the 60s.
Yes.
It's crazy. But, whereas, and you just can't, it's harder to have a conversation about the Guardians. If you're doing a radio show and your partner doesn't know baseball,
it's tough.
It's hard to do that.
It's
it
tough.
makes it challenging.
Yeah, it's tough.
Fortunately, on this show, we have a good balance of guys. But even on this show, we have everybody on this show can talk really well about football.
Sure.
And then when it comes to baseball and basketball, some of us are stronger in basketball, some of us are stronger in baseball.
Right.
I admit it. I don't know basketball as well.
And I don't either.
I try. Even though I make fun of the regular season, I try. But I don't know the other teams that well in basketball.
Right.
Whereas baseball, I'm a lunatic. I know every player on every team.
You do. You are a lunatic.
It's crazy.
Basketball has fallen to the wayside a little bit. I was going to do a video, and it talks about how, as you get older, as I get older, there is a less and less of a population that grows up in schools that play anything, right? Baseball is diminishing.
What do you mean by that?
So there's a study that shows that
less kids are playing sports.
Enrollment in football is down almost 25% because of concussions.
Yes.
We've talked about on the show how I wouldn't even know where to sign the kid up for baseball.
That's sad, yeah.
Between the ages of
But it's still pretty strong in certain communities.
Certain communities, right?
But not like it was.
Overall,
in the
50s and 60s, it was a way of life. Little baseball.
Overall, basketball has become an elitist. Basketball to me is almost like field hockey and lacrosse. If you ain't 6'2" in the sixth grade,
you're done.
You're done. Ain't nobody playing pickup games. There's no youth. It's an elitist sport.
I will say this about baseball, Jay, and you'll appreciate this. And this is only the town I live in. I can't speak for other towns. But a Rocky River Little League had been trending in the wrong direction. We've been getting less and less people. This year, now we have new leadership. Our new commissioner of the league is around my age, which is good. So we got younger.
I'm hearing good things about Rocky River Little League.
Yeah.
And not because people know I know you.
Yeah.
But you're right about that. It's about the people in charge.
Yep.
And
are you still passionate about making it relevant?
And our third and fourth grade league this year increased from 8 teams to 10. So that was good. And how about this? So there's a guy named, we did a video here in the studio. You weren't here that day. After our show, we recorded something for the kids.
Yeah, I was here when they came in.
Oh, yeah, you were. That's right.
Yeah.
So we recorded a video because this guy, George Hine, who was one of the guys who was here, he had this idea because Little League for us ends the middle of July.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, there's a lot of kids that love playing baseball. They want to play more. So he decided to start a fall, we're calling it fall, but it's really mid-July to the end of September.
Yeah.
Mostly late summer. Anyway, it's called fall
rec,
ball.
Right?
Through the rec league, but it's fall ball, and most of the kids play Little League, and a lot of the coaches. So I got involved and a couple other coaches.
What's the interest?
It went through the roof. So the original plan was to have, in the first year, 4 teams in the majors, which is kids that are about to start 6th and 7th grade, and 4 teams in the minors, which is kids that are starting to do going into 4th and 5th grade.
Right.
2 weeks before the deadline, we were short in both leagues. And then we started getting the word out, and it's gone bananas. We've now filled those teams over. We've had to expand to 6 teams in each division.
Wow.
We could go to 8 teams. We just don't right now have enough managers
Do you
yet.
have a
But for next year,
relationship-
we will extend.
Do you have a relationship with the high school coach at Rocky River?
We do, absolutely. In
Okay,
fact,
so
the guy,
that's perfect.
In fact, George Hine, who's like our commissioner, he just texted me a text, an exchange between him and the high school coach.
Yeah.
And they are involved. And Rocky River baseball had its best season ever this year.
I noticed they
in
had
high
a good
school.
year. So,
Yeah.
Bull, I saw this in Florida. I've seen it in Ohio and
Yeah.
New Jersey, where I was very involved with Corey in rec,
Right.
Little League, travel, and then
Yes.
high school.
Right.
The communities where baseball is thriving and doing the best is a community where the high school coach works hand in glove with the Little League coaches.
And that
the
was a
commissioner.
problem.
I'd heard it was a problem.
It's finally
over there.
changed this
I
year.
played a game 2 weeks ago over in Rocky River.
Oh, what field? Oh,
It was
Lutheran
actually
West?
it was actually not Rocky River.
Oh.
It's
Fairview Park?
Fairview Park.
Was it Lutheran West?
I don't know what it's called. There was a Little League field right next to it. There was a game going on there. We were
Okay.
playing on. It's over there by Target,
Okay.
the Target store.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
our Little League is pretty close to the target. Yeah.
And there was a travel game going on, and some guys had come over and they were watching our game, and we
Yeah.
were talking.
Yeah, yeah.
And I started asking them more questions than they were asking us. They were originally, what age
Yeah,
group
yeah.
is this? Where is it from?
Yeah.
And then I was curious about their game. And what I found was, and this is when I heard good things about the Rocky River Little League,
Yeah.
I said, how is baseball on the west side? And they said, it's thriving. Rocky River's doing great things with their Little League.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so it's being noticed by, and the
Right.
team was from Ohio City and I think Lakewood.
Okay.
Were the two teams that were playing. And they were travel teams.
Right.
But all their kids played.
Yeah, we have a
rec
travel
ball, too.
program. Travel has finally made peace with Little League now, which is good.
Well, they have to. They have to work
and
together.
they're all working. We had the high school coach and the high school team at opening day for Little League
that's
for the
critical.
first time ever.
Yeah.
So it's good. And I was in charge of the All-Star game, and we're doing the 4 All-Star games. So it's this Saturday is our All-Star. We're playing 3rd and 5th grade games at 9 a.m. We're playing the 4th and 6th grade games at noon. We're having a fastest pitch contest, fastest around
nice.
the bases for the 3rd and 4th graders. And then for our 5th and 6th grade kids, we're having a home run derby at the Major League
I
field.
tell you, do what you want on the
Yeah.
fastest pitch. I would just tell you from experience, I've
Yeah.
seen kids suffer
Get
injuries
hurt. I
trying
know,
to hit the
I know,
radar gun
I know,
high
I
speed.
know.
Be very
I'm a
careful.
little
They've got to
nervous
be
about
loose.
that. Yeah,
they can't
yeah,
just
yeah.
come up there cold and throw a pitch.
I know.
And you still might see an injury.
I know.
or two. All right, we're out of time. We went over today, but we every once in a while
Weird
we give
day.
you
We
some bonus
appreciate
time.
y'all. We'll see y'all Monday. Enjoy your weekend.
Peace.
Peace.
Yes.